Hi everyone, I'm Raven Maureen, and today we're going to be making McCall's 8576, this dress right here from the new summer McCall's collection. Now the patterns just dropped last Friday on April 4th, so they are out now on simplicity.com for you to purchase. Today we're going to be making view B, so go ahead and grab your pattern, grab your sewing tools, and let's get started.
You're going to need pattern piece number 1. This is the bodice front, cut 2. Pattern piece number 3, this is the bodice back. You're going to cut 1 on the fold. Pattern piece number 3, this is our placket. You're going to cut 2 of fabric and 2 of interfacing. Pattern piece number 4, this is the collar. And you're going to cut 2 on the fold and 1 on the fold for interfacing. Pattern piece number 5, this is the collar band. We're going to cut 2 of fabric and cut 1 of interfacing. Pattern piece number 9, this is our skirt front and back, and you're going to cut 2 on the fold. Pattern piece number 10, this is our skirt side front and side back, and you're going to cut 4 of these. All right, so first we're going to work on pattern piece number 1. So go ahead and do a stay stitch on the neck edge here, going towards the direction of the center seam. Then you are going to do your darts. And so I'm going to show you how to transfer your dart markings for this pattern, because we're going to do it a few times. So I cut out a size 18 for mine, so I'm going to put my pin right here on the dot of the 18, and I'm going to use my heat pen, my erasable heat pen, and mark that here. Next, I am going to take the lines of the dart and do just little notches following those lines. Okay? And using my ruler, I'm going to draw a line from the dot to that notch that I made. And we want to do this on the wrong side of the fabric. Yep. Okay. Now the bottom one is going to be done in a similar fashion, using my pin and marking or putting the pin on that 18 dot and following another 18 dot, because remember I cut a size 18, so you want to do the dart that is corresponding with the size that you cut out. I am literally putting a pin where all of those dots are. And then starting from the bottom, making marks. And as I make the marks, I'm going to remove the pins. Just like that. Again, using my straight ruler, I'm simply going to connect the dots. Like how you used to do when you were little. Or maybe you still do that, who knows. And right here as well. Okay. So now when we go to sew this, you're going to fold this piece in half, making sure that the point is literally visible from both sides. And I'm going to put a pin there. And then I'm going to make sure that the dart legs are going to be even on both sides. Matching up the dots and the legs all the way down. And we're going to do this for both sides of the shirt on both pattern piece number 1s. And I'm also going to pin this one too, using the same method, making sure that the dart legs are even on both sides. Okay, so we're going to stitch along this line, and we're going to stitch along this dart as well at our machines. Be sure to backstitch at the beginning, and then slowly, as you're removing the pins, stitch all the way down. And then when you get to the point, you're going to let the stitch kind of trail off a bit, and that's going to lock in the dart, and then you're going to cut it. For this dart, starting at the bottom, you're going to backstitch and stitch along the dart legs, removing the pins carefully and following the curves of that dart. And once again, once you get to the point of the dart, you're going to let the stitches trail off just a bit and cut that when you're done. So at the iron for this seam right here on the bodice, you're going to press that towards the center front. And if you're using a heat transfer or heat pen, those lines are going to dissolve just like that. And then for this bust dart here, you're going to make sure that the legs are facing downward. We're going to set pattern piece number 1 to the side, and we're going to move on to pattern piece number 3, just for a brief moment, the placket. So on the unnotched edge, I pressed this under at a half an inch. So now I'm just going to trim this down just a little. And then I'm going to bring pattern piece number 1 back. And on the notched edge here, I'm going to put right sides together and pin this down. And I'm going to match up the notches that are right here along the placket. Okay, at my machine, I'm going to sew this down at 5/8. So at our iron, we are going to take the seam allowance and press it towards the placket, just like this. And then we are going to turn the placket onto itself making sure that the seam allowance is even all the way down. And you can either stitch in the ditch or you may hand sew this down. So I did go ahead and do like a little hand stitch on mine. So I'm going to set this to the side, and then we are going to move on to pattern piece number 2, which is our bodice back. So with our bodice back, go ahead and do a stay stitch along the neck edge over here, and then also go ahead and do darts just like how we did on our front bodice. Moving along, now we are going to connect our bodice front to our bodice back. So right sides together, we are going to attach our bodice front and back at the shoulder seam, and making sure that we are matching up seams and notches right here. At our sewing machines, we're going to stitch this down at 5/8 on each side. After stitching down the shoulder seams, go ahead and finish the shoulder seam raw edges, and then also finish the side edges too, and we'll work on the side edges later. So now we're going to work on our collar band and attaching that to the shirt. So grab the piece that is interfaced, and using dots and notches, we are going to attach the collar to the bodice. Okay, so go ahead and sew your collar stand at 5/8 at your machine. I always like to start in the center of the collar band and the collar anytime I'm working on any sort of collar shirt. So I start in the center back, and then I work my way to the edges, and then I do have to turn the shirt around to the other side. And so starting at the other end of the shirt, I work my way to back to the center back. And I'm doing this at 5/8 at my machine, and you do have to clip in those notches a little bit around the curves of the neckline. That way everything gets stitched down as smoothly as possible without any wrinkles or bumps in the fabric. Alright, so after stitching down the collar and giving it a good press, go ahead and get pattern piece number 4, which is your collar, and we are going to pin this. So go ahead and take this to your sewing machine and stitch down this side all the way down and to the other side. After stitching this down, go ahead and trim all of your raw edges or your seam allowance, and then turn it right side out. And using a point turner or something sharp, you can go ahead and poke out those corners. All right, so once you have given this a good press, we are going to attach this to our collar stand, matching up some notches that we see here. We're going to take this to our machine and baste it down.
Again, I'm starting at my center back and I'm working my way down to the sides of the collar. And this is actually easier than attaching the collar band because this has no real curves to it and this is a basting stitch. So this is an easy step.
So once you attach the collar, let's go back to our collar band. So press under the unnotched edge and then trim it down just like you see here. Then we are going to lay our collar stand right on top of the collar just like you see here, matching up those notches. And this one will be easier to attach because the first one's already been attached. And this is just kind of like the closure piece. Going to stitch all the way around this curve here at our machines. Okay, once the collar is attached, go ahead and start trimming off that excess at the top. Again, poking out those corners just like this. And once you give this a good press, you may stitch this in the ditch or do a hand stitch down at the bottom to enclose this. All right, so after you have done the slip stitching for your collar stand, go ahead and take your placket pattern piece, which is pattern piece number 3, and begin doing your markings for your buttons. You can do this later, but this is the next step in the instructions. And also it's just going to be a little bit easier for you because once you add the skirt, there's less room to actually do the buttons with the buttonhole machine. At least that's how it is on my machine. It could be different for you, but this is a step that honestly makes more sense to do while the skirt piece is not attached. So per your sewing machine instructions, go ahead and do your buttonholes at this point. And you can sew the buttons on later, but the buttonholes is probably going to be the most important thing at this time. And if you're wondering how I got my pattern piece 3 to be like that, I folded it along the fold line here, placed it down and pinned it, and now I have all of my dot markings for my buttons. So after you finish your buttonholes, go ahead and stitch this side down and then stitch this side to the notch right here. I put a pin there because we're going to leave this side open for our invisible zipper later. All right, so we are going to add bias binding to our sleeve. And so now go ahead and take your bias tape and press it open. And I would just do one pass with the pressing of it open. That way you can still kind of see the creases of the bias tape. Then starting at the seam, the side seam of your armhole, go ahead and do just a small finger press along that edge. Place a wonder clip there. And then we are going to pin all the way around the armhole. Okay, and when we get to that seam again, I'm gonna cut the bias tape, and I'm leaving more than a little, just leaving room for error. Okay, so I'm gonna do a 1/4 inch seam along this raw edge here around the bias tape at my machine. All right, so then I cut the raw edge of the bias tape just past that creased edge. That way when we fold it under and we seal everything up, the creased edge will cover that raw edge.
Turn the tape to the inside and press, and then on the inner edge of the tape we are going to top stitch.
Okay, so now we're going to take pattern piece number 9, which is our skirt back, and we are going to connect it to pattern piece number 10. And feel free to serge the edges or finish the edges before sewing this together. And we're going to sew this at 5/8 on both sides at our machine here. And make sure that you're matching up your notches on your skirt and that your pleat notches are all at the top as well. Okay. So now we are going to work on our pleats. I want to point out how the pleats are seamless throughout the seams, throughout the side seams that is. And so when we are going to do our pleats, you're going to have a seam here and you're going to have a pleat that carries over into that seam. So I wanted to point that out to you all before we got started. Also keep in mind that if you made the notch right here, you're not going to count that notch on this pattern piece here when it comes to doing your pleats. Now how I mark pleats is that I do put a little notch where the solid line is and the dotted line, solid line, and so on and so forth. Now the main thing is to pay attention to those arrows. Those arrows are going to tell you to bring your solid line to your broken line, just like that, together to meet into that broken line. So let's go ahead and do that now and we'll move on. And I will say it is totally okay to have your pattern piece here. That way you can follow this guide. So at the top here is this pleat. So I'm literally going to meet that notch to the broken line notch that I made. And it's going to create a box pleat more or less. So if I'm following the guide, this is my broken line, bringing my solid line to my broken line, just like that. So now I have a little box pleat. Remember what I was saying about the seam here? So move that across the seam, move this one across this seam, the center front one or the center back one, I'm going to do that one last because that one's going to be a little bit different. So now for that center, your center front is pretty much going to act as your broken line that you're going to bring this notch to the center of, right here in the middle. Just like that. Okay, so now we have all of our pleats. And I would just straighten them out just a little bit, make sure there's no bumps or anything like that. and then you're going to baste across the top. Now you are going to do this twice. So we have one that's already done, and this is how it's going to look after it's pressed. And so you're going to do the same thing, and then we're going to attach these pieces at the side seam. All right, so once you've pressed your pleats, go ahead and take your other skirt and place it right sides together. Make sure it's right sides together. I know the pleats can be confusing. And on this side, we are going to pin and sew all the way down. And we're actually going to leave this side open because this side is going to be where our invisible zipper goes. So we are just going to sew down just this side. Okay, now we're going to attach the skirt to the bodice. So right sides together, taking the bottom of the bodice to the top of the skirt, matching up notches and side seams. We are going to pin all the way around the skirt and the bodice. All right, once you've pinned all the way around the skirt, go ahead and stitch at 5/8 at your machine. Now we're going to get into our invisible zipper. So go ahead and open up that side, and we are going to roll our zipper down, and we are going to lay one side of the zipper tape along the edge here, and you're going to bump the teeth up, the teeth of the zipper, to where you stop the seam, if you guys can see that. And I'm going to use my serged edge as a way to line it up properly. And it's going to stop right here. At these teeth. Right here at the notch. And like I always tell y'all, I am going to do a basting stitch, and if I love it, then I'm going to do my 2.5 stitch. So I'm going to do this now, and then I'm going to trim my tape once I finish everything.
So after completing my basting stitches, I am going back over this zipper tape with a 2.5 stitch length, and I'm just using some wonder clips to hold it in place as I do that. And then I'm going to stitch down or reinforce those stitches all the way down to the notched edge on the skirt. And then we're going to take this back to the table, and I'll show you the next steps.
Okay, your zipper is gonna look a little weird from the top, and so go ahead and tuck your tape in. Zip this up just like you see here. So now you are going to take the rest of this and we are going to sew up this seam. And if you have a if you have a long zipper, go ahead and snip this as well. But we are going to take our zipper foot and we are going to sew this up and finish the seam. All right, so after you finish that that side seam, go ahead and add your buttons per your sewing machine guidelines and instructions, and then of course add your bottom hem, and you are all finished. Thanks for watching.
I want to thank you all for watching that video. Now, if you want to see more, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button for the Simplicity channel. And be sure to follow me over at my channel on YouTube at Raven Maureen. And don't forget, you can sign up for the Simplicity newsletter over at simplicity.com so that you can be the first to know about all of the new pattern collections and any additional updates. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.